All right, so let's continue. Today we'll talk about making reports. So there's a bunch of different things that can go into that.
Dave,
Uh,
can you Dave, can you record? If you're not
yeah, I'm
already.
recording. I got the recording going. Does anybody have any questions or anything? Any comments or feedback, or want me to talk about something specific before I get started on this? All right. So let's talk about reports. There's a number of things that can go into reports. So we'll be talking about a bunch of different topics here, but you can make reports in PlantStar. If you come to this is the APU interface, and it's in the reports manager. And we basically make a report configuration. So it's a description of a report. And then later you can do things like generate that report, or you can have a live report going. So like generating a report or seeing a live one is basically like the instance of that report configuration. So we call them report configurations, what we'll be creating here, because it's just the description. Uh, the report configuration has a name. It has this text area, and that's really about it. Down here are some helper buttons to add different things into the report. Um, what this report is like it says here, it's HTML. So you could just write text, but you can also, but it's a little more powerful. So you can put HTML in here, which means um, you can style it a little bit, and you can link to different things. So you could add, you could put a video in here. You could put PDF. You could link to a PDF. You could link to an image. Um, there's a couple of things right now that are you can link to things that you've created in PlantStar. So spreadsheets and charts, which are the things we'll talk about in a minute of how to make those. Um, if I'll just give an example here. I'll add a header. So there's the um, so when I hit add, you'll see that it puts a whole bunch of code in here that's actually HTML. So you can type it yourself. You can use these functions. So there's this makes a header. Could add a paragraph of text. Just look at this spreadsheet, and then we'll make a spreadsheet in a second. So, oops, I meant to hit the add button. Add. So I'll add that. It was my report. Um, okay, so I mentioned that you can link to different things like videos and PDFs and spreadsheets. One thing to keep in mind when it comes to like customers, when this is out, customers, they have PlantStar and they're making reports, is that it depends on how their network is configured, if they'll be able to actually see the thing they're linking to. So a lot of customers, they don't want PlantStar to communicate with the internet, so they just want to keep it within their network. What that means is, if they wanted to link to a video, but that video is out on the internet, like it's a YouTube video, then they're not going to be able to see the video. So, but if they allow PlantStar to communicate with the internet, and that's just their network configuration, then um, if they wanted to link to a YouTube video, they could see it. It just depends on how restrictive they are on giving PlantStar access to either their network or the internet. So a solution they could have is they can host videos or PDFs or images on their own network, and then give PlantStar access to those locations on their network, and then they could link to those things. So if they ever bring it up and they're like, oh, I linked to this, but I can't see it, then you might want to ask about that. Do they have access to the internet? And then even if they are trying to link to something on their network, they'll have to find out, does PlantStar have access to that, and are they linking it in the right way? Do they have the right address to the thing, and things like that. So um, let's see. So right now, all I did was I put a header and a paragraph. So I'll save that. If I go to generate this report, You pick a time frame because usually your report is going to have something like a spreadsheet or a chart, which is basically some data over time. So you want to specify how much, what amount of time you want to look at to have these charts. So right now, though, it'll generate a report, but all I've got is text in here. I didn't link to anything. I didn't link to a spreadsheet. So I'll come back to this then. We'll go make a spreadsheet. We'll see all that. We'll come back in here and see linking to it. You'll notice it when I generated it, it opened up a new tab in the browser. It's just a web page, and then they could now it's like the browser sort of in control of it, so they can save it or they can print it, right? So they can print it however they want now. Print it as PDF or to any of their printers or whatever they want. So, yeah, let's see. So let's go back. I made that report config. Now I want to put things into it. So there's a couple things you can put in. There's spreadsheets. So spreadsheets are under the report section. You also saw you can put charts. So charts have their own section. First, I'll talk about spreadsheets. So I'm gonna make a spreadsheet configuration. If you make a spreadsheet configuration, it is basically a time interval and a model or a thing that you want to see data about, and then data categories, which are kind of like metrics, pieces of information that can be calculated to get you the numbers. And this is just going to make a spreadsheet. So let's make a simple one. We'll say, by week, give me for each machine, I want to see a spreadsheet of how long it was down and how many parts it made, I guess. So if I can go generate this spreadsheet now. I'll pick a time frame that I want to see that. So maybe I'll just pick a week back. And I've got two options here. I can preview it or I can export it to CSV. So if I preview it, it'll just kind of open right here. It'll break, and this is what the spreadsheet is. It's, breaks it down by week, breaks it down by each machine, gives me the total for each machine and then the total across all the machines. Of how long it was down and number of parts made. I could to a CSV and it'll just open up on my computer, CSV, and I can save it wherever I want. So that's a spreadsheet. I guess I'll go back to the report and I'll show it in the report itself. So I'll go edit this report, and I want to put it underneath this line here. I can go add a spreadsheet. I can find my spreadsheet here and add it. This syntax here, the way this is written, is not HTML. It's kind of a PlantStar trademark, whatever syntax, I guess. So you could type this in yourself if you learn the syntax, or you can just use the helper button. So I'm going to add that, and I'll generate my report again. This time it'll open up a new page. And now I can see this report, look at this report, and I can see the spreadsheet that we saw, basically when we previewed it. It also gives a little note here of the time frame that it was generated for. And we can see, yeah, August 5th to August 12th. So, okay, so that's the spreadsheet. Let me add another thing here. Let's say this chart, and I'll add that, and I'll save it. And oops, I was going to generate that just so we can see. Then now, I've got this as a report, look at this spreadsheet, and then look at this chart, and there's nothing here. So we have to add a chart, but we don't have any. So, or we didn't make any, and I'll show us how to make that. So remember on the APU, let me just minimize that. So we're on the APU, in the menu area, there's the charts. So we'll go to charts. And what's called a chart configuration, because it's a description of a chart. And then once you actually generate the chart, then it's an actual chart. So call it chart configuration. I'll click create chart configuration, and there's several options here to make a chart. So you have a name. You can make either a bar, a line, or a pie chart. Then depending on which one of these you select, you have some different options down here. Like a bar chart could be a stacked bar chart or not. So there's this checkbox for that. You can choose for the x-axis, you can choose a time interval, or you can choose an x-axis category, which is kind of like what we saw in on the spreadsheet, where it's just like instead of time, it's just different things, and how, the y-axis will be like how much of the thing, and the x-axis will be each one of those individual things. So maybe machines. Each bar will be a machine. So there's kind of a lot of flexibility in here. You can go through and make things how you want it, and I think there's kind of a disclaimer where it's like it could come out not looking the way you want it, depending on how you configure it. So you have to really understand what you're looking for and what to select to get to what you're looking for. So let's just choose, I'll make a bar chart. And I'll say, by machine, number of data points here is how many you want to see. So in this case, it would be like I think if you choose 0, it'll just show as many as it can. If you or possibly top 10, I have to look that up. Or you could say, I want to see it. At the moment, it's just the top number, the highest number. So you could say like 3, that would give you the top 3 for whatever data categories you're going to be choosing. Is public. This has to do with are other people able to see this? So you can make a private chart configuration, one that only you want to see yourself, and then I'll show you where this comes into play in a little bit. But first, we'll just look at actually making the chart configuration. So we're making a bar chart. We want to see by machine. We want to see the top 3. Which ones had the most downtime. So I'll do is public doesn't really matter for the moment, so I won't do it. And I won't make it a stacked one. So let me just save that. So I just created my bar chart. Let's go back to that report, and I could make this. I could generate it again using this chart. So let's add a chart. My bar chart, I choose that. I could enter a title. I could say top 3 down machines, I guess, or whatever. It's not a great name, but okay. Now it put that into my report configuration. I'll save it. Let me go generate past week. All right, so there's a report. Look at this spreadsheet. Here's a spreadsheet. Look at this chart. And then here's that header I gave to the chart, top 3 down machines. And then it listed the 3 machines that had the most amount of downtime. Looks like there's a bug here because that's not time. So, oh, I guess it's still kind of a bug because it's in seconds, I think. So that's not exactly helpful. I'll write that down. But anyways, so that was that, and it also has a little thing down here showing you what the time frame was for that being generated. Okay, so that was a report. Let's see if there's anything else. I mean, you can just, we could have, look at this spreadsheet. I made it a paragraph, but you could just add your own text, I believe. I don't think it has to actually be HTML. So let me just take a look. I just took out the HTML part of it. And yeah, see, it says this is a report, and then my text is just there. So you can do that as well. Okay, so that was making a report, making a spreadsheet, a little bit about making charts, or most of making charts. Any questions about that so far? All right. So maybe I'll go back to this charts thing for a second. So when you make charts, you're making chart configurations. There's two places that these could be used right now. We just saw one of them was on reports. The other one is on this page called production event dashboard. So if I go to the production event section, there's a bunch of charts here. And these charts, you can see time spent and status, downtime per hour, percent uptime. You'll notice that they were actually already here, time spent and status, downtime per hour. So these were all already created, and they're on this production event dashboard page. This page is configurable, so you can change what you actually see on this page. Right now it's showing, I guess 12 charts. I could change this to be whatever I want. So there's a page, right, by the way, so we're on the APU in the production events section. And if I navigate down to the bottom here, it says production event chart configuration select. So that's this page, configuring which charts show up on this page. So when you come to this page, there's a bunch of things you can do here. So it gives you a list of users, and you can choose like per user which charts they're going to see. So right now I'm logged in as the Syscon user. So I'm looking at the Syscon user, and I'm looking at the chart configurations that the Syscon user can see on that page. So this is all of them. This is all 12 of those. So let me just reset this basically. I'll take these off, and then we can see, how it looks before they were selected. So, okay, so what I did is I just put it back over here. So on the left side, we've got basically what's available for me to see, or the Syscon user to see. And then in this box will be like which ones I've actually selected to see. So you'll notice that there's all the public ones. So I guess all those other ones were public, and then I didn't set mine to public, so it shows up in this private chart configuration. What that means is I made this chart and I didn't set it to public, so it's just sort of for me to see, and it's not part of the public ones that other people would see. So let me change. I'll change users to a different user, and I'll come to this page. Let me just give a user like all permissions basically. And then, so again, I'll come back to this page just so we see the, so as the Syscon user, oh, I didn't save it. Let me just, yeah, let me do that. I should have saved it. Okay, so as a Syscon user, this is what I see. Let me change to that other user. And so now I'm logged in as this user one. I see all the public ones, but I don't see that private one, and it's not in this list because the Syscon user isn't sharing it with other people, pretty much. So that's just to sort of bring it all around again. In the chart section, when you make a chart, you can make it public or not, and that is what this checkbox is doing. It's either going to show up in that public for everybody to see, or if it's not public, it's only going to show up for the person who created the chart configuration. Okay, let me change back. So now I change back to the Syscon user, and I'm on the production of a dashboard page, but it doesn't show those charts anymore. And that's because I removed them all in this chart configuration select section. So I could add this chart now, my bar chart. This little section down here is saying how much time you want the chart to be showing. Basically in the past, starting from when it gets generated backwards in time. So it's configured to be 3 days. I could change it to 2 days, whatever, 7 days. So I'll change it to 7. You'll notice that there was the number of days shows up in parentheses over here. So I'll change that back. Now it's 3. Change back to 7. Now it's 7. And I added this chart, but now I have to save it. So now that I've saved it, now I can go back to production event dashboard, and that chart will appear. And now it's like we saw before. There's, top 3 machines. So okay, let's see. Again, it's time, but it's seconds, so it's like 41,000 seconds, whatever that is. On this page, I can basically click to expand it, see a bigger version of it. There's some options here for what I can do on this chart. I can download it. So if I hit that, then I'd actually save the image to my computer. We'll see in a second that this production event page, you can see it from the DCM interface as well. If it, depending on what that device is that you're looking at the DCM interface on, this button may not be all that useful because it downloads directly to it downloads to wherever you put it. But so like if your device is on a network drive, or if you have access to that device's files, basically, then you could download it to it. Of course, if it's like a network drive or a shared drive or something, you download it to that, and then anybody could get it. But for example, Plants Syscon, we have our own. We sell devices, so we'll sell HMIs like tablets, or like touchscreen devices. If that touchscreen device or if that tablet is on this page, basically on this page on the APU, or if it's on this page on the DCM, and you hit the save button, it's going to download to that device. And I don't think customers have access to the files on that device. So just something to remember, maybe if you're talking to customers about that, or if they bring it up, just something to remember. Yeah, there's some other options here. You can zoom in, you can pan. I think this is pan maybe. Zoom in. Looks like there's a couple of zooms. Zoom in, zoom out. Not sure, auto scale. Okay, I kind of panned, so auto scale brought it back. Reset axes. I'm not 100% on all these things. I haven't exactly done them all, but you could play around with them and see what they do for the different chart types. Okay, so this is the other place where you can see the charts that you configured. So the 2 places were reports and this production event dashboard page. Okay, I guess I'll just show it on the DCM interface as well. So I'm on the APU. I went to the DCM data collection modules section. I'm looking at this browse page, the list of DCMs, and right here there's a hyperlink to the DCM itself. So that's one way to get to the DCM interface. Oh, I don't know, do I have this running? Oh, I didn't start it up. Okay. All right, so here we are on the DCM interface, and one of these tabs says production dashboard. So this production dashboard is basically the same as that production event dashboard. Now, one thing is, if a user's logged in and they come to this page, they're going to see, what charts they configured, like we did on this configuration select page. If nobody's logged in, as they are right now, we're still seeing charts, right? So there's actually a user in here called generic data collection module user. It's basically nobody is logged into the DCM user. So let me just remove a bunch of these. And I'll just leave one. And I'll come back to the DCM. Oop. Oh, yeah, okay, let's see. Okay, there we go. And now I'm just seeing that one. So this generic data collection module user, that's the one for what will be seen on this page when nobody's logged into the DCM. Okay, there's a few more things in this report section. So let's go over those. So we went over report configurations and spreadsheet configurations. There's scheduled items. So let's see what's in scheduled items. It's got a name. It's got a spreadsheet. So right now you can just schedule the basically sending or of spreadsheets to email to people. So it's got a name. I'll just call it, my scheduled spreadsheet. It's got a spreadsheet you could select, comments optionally. And then there's this section here called reoccurrence rule. I feel like I should say recurrence rule, but okay, reoccurrence rule. This is kind of similar if you've sent emails like this or even scheduled meetings. Basically, it's a way to say like how often you want this thing to happen on a regular basis. So there's a bunch of options here. You can say, send it every week, send it every day, send it every hour. You say how many times to do it. I might have to get more details on exactly these what these mean. I don't remember them off the top of my head, and we don't have the help icons just yet. You can say, which days of the week you want, which day of the week you want to do it, or multiple days of the week, and or which months you want to happen on, and between when and when do you want this to happen. There's a lot of options here that we'll have to get it in the manual or something, because again, I can't exactly remember what the difference between some of these are. But that's what it's for. And you'll see it here. Let me show on like Outlook. If I go to like meetings and I go to make a meeting, then it'll say like make it recurring. And then you can come in here and say, make this meeting happen between these times for this amount of time, happen, for so many weeks or daily, weekly, monthly, and you can choose the different times. So you can say, end it by this time or never end it, basically. So that's, it's basically the same theme as this is what this is for. So you do that. The duration is basically like the time frame. So when we generated the spreadsheet, we chose a start date time and an end date time. So this is the same thing. It's the duration of how much, starting from when it's getting generated or backwards in time, basically, how much do you want? So maybe I want to see, the past 3 days. Let's see. And then there's email recipients. So this is something you have to configure elsewhere, but this is the people who will receive this spreadsheet. Okay, so that's what a scheduled item is, and then once you save it, then once these conditions are met, it'll be emailed to these people, basically. I don't have everything configured in here, but that's basically what a scheduled item is. Any questions on this? Okay. Let's look at the next thing in here. So there's two things. There's a live report configuration and a live report. Live report is basically a page where you can go to and it'll regularly refresh, and you can see the report sort of, technically whatever, generated live, or the values update, regularly. So that you don't have to keep, if you maybe you want to just see a report updated regularly without having to go generate it over and over and over again. So you make a live report configuration, and then you basically set it up on the live report page. So let's go to live report configuration. When you create one of these, you give it a name. My live report. You select a report configuration, any comments you want, and then duration again is like that time frame of anything within the report, like a spreadsheet or a chart. How much time do you want? How much time in the past basically do you want to generate that data for? So let's save that. That's my live report configuration. Now let's go to the live report page. I can choose my live report. There's a drop down here. So I'll choose it, and then I'll start the live report. It'll generate it. Now here's my report. And then, so this whole live report was last updated at 4:35. I'm not sure how often this regenerates, basically. I'm guessing 30 seconds, but I don't actually know. I guess we could wait here for 30 seconds and see what happens. We'll just have some dead air for a few seconds. All right. Well, I don't know how long it's been, honestly. Who knows when I started this? But one other thing that's here is you can hit this button and it'll make it full screen. So that's kind of nice. If they just want to put it up on the fully on the screen. You get out of that, I don't know. I'm hitting escape. That's not getting me out of it. I'm not sure. I guess I'm stuck now on full screen, huh? Trying to click outside of it, but that's not working either. I guess reload the page. We'll see what that does. Okay, that brought me back, but it killed the live report. So now at least I know when I started this was.
Idea.
What?
Feature idea.
Yeah. How about give me like an escape? A way to get out of something. Yeah. Okay. I'll actually write that one down. I forgot when this started, but I think it was like 50 or something. So right about now it should update, but this thing only says the minute, not the seconds. So I think that means it did it, right? Because if oh no, actually it did it. Yeah, because it flipped over the minute, and I added this thing before 4:37. I believe. I could use some better whatever, but I mean we could wait and see if it says 4:38 at some point in the inside of the minute of 4:38. I don't know when that would be, maybe 4:38 and oh, there we go. Okay, so apparently that updated. And this even down here it says 4:38. So even these updated. I guess we could have seen the numbers go up. Oh no, yeah, the 12th. So I think we would have seen some of these numbers go up, basically. Because they should be making parts. I'm pretty sure, jobs are running and they're making parts on my dev build. 123,903. We might, I don't know. We might see that go up. Oh, okay. I think I just saw some numbers go up. I don't know. Anyways, okay. So this is a live report, and that's all the stuff here in reports. I guess one last thing I would say is we saw on the scheduled items, we saw that there was like recipients, email recipients, people who could receive these scheduled items in their email, and so that's something you have to add to the system. It does at the moment. It doesn't pull from the users that are created. So that have email addresses. It pulls from in the alerts section, so in alerts, there are private alert recipients. And this is where you just add, people, and you can give them an email address or a phone number so that it'll send a text, but it's basically their phone number as an email address. I don't know if you know about that, but you can send someone a text message by emailing their phone number, sending an email to their phone number. So, but I'll just show email. I'll add this person with the email. .com. And if I go back to reports, I'll go to scheduled items, and now I'll see that I can bring someone over and select them to receive this. And this is another one of those multi-select UI elements that we have, where you can click multiple of these and click the add button. It'll bring it over and bring it back, or you can just drag it back and forth. So that sort of runs the whole thing here of reports. You can, put text or HTML in it. You can link to spreadsheets and charts that you've made in PlantStar. Charts can be shown in those reports, or they can be used on the production event dashboard page. You can configure what charts show up on the on that page, and depending, I think admins can change it for everybody or something, or there might be a permission for that. Let me go look here. Users permission groups. So this is like the list of permissions you can give to people who aren't admins. Chart selection, I believe this is that. So that's a permission where you can edit other people's charts or edit your own, I guess. It's interesting. There's the scheduled items, so you can schedule, set emailing spreadsheets basically to people. There's the live report page where you can basically have a report that's like regenerating and updating kind of live. And yeah, so is there any question? That's the whole gamut basically of all the report stuff. So does anybody have anything to say about any of that, or any questions? Okay, so we have like a little bit of time left. So let's see, tools and materials, users. I guess because I was just sort of touching a little bit on users, I'll just go over the user section. So, there are users in the system. They can log in and they can do all the different actions and things. And they can do the actions on the DCM, depending. So let's talk about creating a user. So when you make a user, you have to give them a username and a first name and a last name. You can optionally give them an email address at the moment. So you don't have to give them an email address. If you don't give them an email address and you create the user, a password is generated. And so actually, let me just show that so we can, I'll just call this person A. So I'll save that. I create this user, and I'm like an admin and I'm creating the user. So when I come back in, I see there's a new field here called generated password. And so if that person wants to basically log in and use the system, the first time they'll have to use this generated password, and once they use it, it will ask them to reset their password. And I think after that, if they don't have an email address, then they kind of have to remember that, because I don't think there's a way for them to reset the password a second time after that. Because I believe it kind of gives you that standard email address, message about if you want to reset your password, give us an email address, we'll send you whatever a link, So you can still, but that means that you can have users with no email addresses, as long as they just remember that first time they made the password. Of course, after that, you could add the email address, and then they could, go to that email address to reset the password. You can, okay, so that covers that. You can give them an employee ID. What that's used for is on the DCM, there's different security settings that could be put on the actions that you can do on the DCM, and one of them is providing the employee ID. So it'll bring up a prompt asking for it. If they don't have one, then they can't do the action. You can set the language that they'll see when they log in. And again, English comes free with the system, but any other languages are paid features. So we have Chinese and Spanish right now. Yeah. Type of user. Okay, so this type of user is basically about permissions. There's standard users and there's admin users. If they're a standard user, then you come down to this permission section. You'll see a list of all kinds of permissions you can set on this person individually. And so you could do that, give them this permission, don't give them that permission. With an admin user, the whole permission thing goes away and they just have all the permissions. One of the permissions that you'll have as an admin, but you can't have as a standard user is editing users. So if I go to the user section here, it says edit any except admins, create any except admins. So a standard user cannot edit admins or create admin users or delete admin users. That's just not allowed. Yeah, I think those are the only ones that say except admin. So that's the difference between standard user and admin user. You can select whether they're active or not. That doesn't really have much bearing anymore. I don't think there used to be licenses for users, but there aren't anymore. So being active doesn't necessarily do anything. I don't think. I guess if they're not active, then they can't log in. So that actually is pretty useful. So I would say that's the thing that is active is used for. Is operator. So you can set them to be an operator. And what that does is on the DCM side of things, there's a tab here called operator check-in and check-out. If the user is set as an operator, then they'll be able to come here and check in and check out. And those checking ins and checking outs are tracked. So I think what it's useful for is if you want to determine, it can be used for any number of things. If they want to keep track of people's times of when they're checking in and checking out. But I don't think for what we've heard is that people don't really use that necessarily. But they could use it. There's no page in it in PlantStar right now, but they could write a script or whatever. I mean, there's a page where you can view the check-in and check-out, so they could go through that. It's a lot of data, as opposed to like a page that shows you, this person was checked out from them then to then. You could filter it down and stuff like that. Yeah, those things that's actually called operator action events or check-in events, and we'll see it in a second. I'll show that in a second. Just one thing I wanted to say here is that so we see this permission section and there's like a lot of permissions. There's something you can do here to kind of make things quicker, more efficient, that kind of thing. It's called permission groups. So I don't have one made right now, but let's say I wanted to give someone, there's a lot of permissions here and I want to give them half of them. Well, I have to go in and, check all the boxes that I want or whatever I want to do, and that takes a long time. And then maybe I have another person who I'm creating and, I want to give them, the same set of permissions or something similar, so a similar set of permissions or whatever it is. You can create basically, it's called permission group. It's basically a permission template. And it's not exactly, I would say it's not exactly the same as roles. I feel like when you talk about roles, you're talking about a very rigid set of permissions that cannot change. And what we have here is permission groups you can sort of import the permission groups. It'll select all them. I'll show that in a second. But then you can modify it once it's brought in. So it's not really set in stone. So let me just show that real quick. In this user section, there's a section here called permission groups. I'll go to permission groups. I'll create permission groups. It shows basically exactly what you saw right, on the user page. I'll just grab a couple of these. I'll just take away a couple and add some just to show that you can, what these buttons do. They add all, remove all. You can select some, you can add all and then deselect some. I'll just call this, permission group. I'll save it. When I go back to the user, now I can come down to permissions and I can select my permission group in this dropdown. And and then I'll add the permissions and you'll see that it added those exact ones that I selected. But it's not a role. First of all, it disappeared once I hit add permissions from selected group, just in case, let's say somebody named this like admins or something, admin permissions. We didn't want to give the sense that once you select this person is now an admin and that's their role basically. We just wanted to, so when you hit add, it disappears and it selects all the things, but it's just to let you know that like you've basically just set these permissions, but now that I've done that, I can remove them. They're not, it's just filling in the checkboxes. And I know that there's two other buttons here. Maybe you want to add them all or remove them all. Those are here too. Okay, so that was it for permissions. All right, so that's it for creating a user. And we saw permission groups. There's another section here called user action events. Okay, I guess I'll show this one just because I referenced it. Operator check-in event periods. This is, oh, well, I didn't do it. So I'll check in Jessica Clark. So now I just checked in an operator on the DCM page. I'll come back over here to my operator check-in event periods, and you can see that, this user, Jessica Clark, checked into machine 2 at 4:51 and hasn't checked out yet. So this is just a browse page. It'll just list every single time someone checks in and out. It'll show them both for that user. And that's just for tracking. So like I said, it's it could be useful if the customer has their own scripts that they're writing to query the database to get data and they want to use this data. It can be useful also for if the customer they don't have security set necessarily on all the actions, or maybe they have the open setting or the access code setting, and somebody does an action and it's not clear who did it. One thing you can do is look at who was checked in during that time. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it can sort of narrow things down if people want to figure out who did a certain action, around a certain time. So that kind of leads into the next page here, the user action events. Every single thing that's done in the system is tracked. Didn't we? I feel like we did this and it didn't work for the one action that we tried, but pretty much all actions, or at least it's supposed to. Every single action should be tracked of who did it, when that piece of information can be known. So like, if somebody's logged in, then every action they do is going to be tracked here. On the DCM side of things, if you're logged in, it'll track exactly who did it when they did it. If nobody's logged in, then it'll use the security setting that's set on it. So if it's username and password, then we'll know exactly who did it because they had to provide their username and password, or employee ID, depending on if, each individual is the only one who knows their own employee ID. When it comes to access code and open, then it's not going to be so obvious. I would say for open, access code, and open and access code, the user action event that shows up, it tells you which user did it, but actions on the DCM, depending on, if it's those three, it won't actually show the exact person who did it. It'll just give a sort of generic user. If I look in the filters, I can see there's some obviously users, right? There's that A person I made, there's Jessica Clark, there's Andrew Carter. Then there's some other ones that are clearly not users, but they're sort of system-based type of users. So there's one particular one I want to show is in here. I think it's generic user. So this generic user is basically the user that did it when nobody was logged in, and I believe if it was an open security setting, an access code security, or an access code security setting. Generic user is kind of similar to when we saw on the that chart configuration page, where you can determine which charts you see, and we were looking at that list of users, and we saw one of them was like generic whatever user. So that just means we can't pinpoint exactly who it was, but we're going to put in the user section basically somebody or something. So we'll put the generic user. What this page is showing is what type of thing they did was, did they create something, did they edit something? You can see in the filters, create something, delete something, edit something, log in, log out. Which device it was on, so either DCM or APU, the user who did it, if we can use it, obviously. If we don't, it's generic user. What the thing was that got changed. So a few minutes ago, I created a permission group. So this is the user action event for that. I created a permission group. The ID is just basically its ID in the database. Don't worry about that. What the name is, when it was created, event date time is also basically when it was created. And then this changes JSON section in the future will be more human readable, but this is the actual change that was made. So a common thing you'll see in here is, so this is a create, so it just says for each field, what was the value? I didn't put any comments in, so comments is not, it basically goes, a string is the thing that was changed, and then colon, and then the change. So comments, we created this, so it's created with comments, but I didn't add any. Or name, the name of the thing was my permission group. So that's how that works. If it's an edit, then you'll see things in brackets like this. So I edited a user, I guess, to have certain chart. Oh, I edited one of the user's chart configurations, and I changed the number of days, apparently from 2 to none. I don't know about that, but but anyways, you can see. Oh, I think it says 2 to none because I removed it. This is when I removed those charts. So yeah, so like you can see, it's not exactly human readable necessarily, but the data is there. In the future, we'll make it more human readable. This is it for the user section. Are there any questions about any of that? Okay, so I think it's a good time to stop here. And